Hey guys, welcome to Practical Machine Learning series. This is lecture 6. Today we will be looking at intermediate data manipulation. Particularly we will be looking at data aggregation and data grouping. So let's look at today's agenda. So guys, today we will look at what is data aggregation. Then we will look at how to create random data for our use case. After that, we will look at different ways to aggregate our data, mainly row wise and column wise. Then we will be looking at how to perform grouping and what it means by grouping. And after that, I will be giving you some homework. Finally, I will share some resources to get you started. So let's start today's session. First thing first, what is data aggregation? In simple words, data aggregation refers to summarizing or combining data such as calculating statistics for different groups. Individually we were doing things, but now we will be working in group. We are going to summarize our data into groups and then we are going to calculate statistics. Aggregating the data if necessary by grouping it and computing summary statistics for deeper insights, in other words. So these aggregation will give us a deeper insights in a group based approach. Now it comes under the broader umbrella of data manipulation. It includes two steps, aggregation and grouping. But before moving on to these two, let's now look at how to create our random data for this particular lecture. So for this lecture, I am going to create a shopping data and it will be mostly random. The main idea here is that how it looks like to work on a real data set and how you can apply all those techniques that I am going to show you here. Okay. So first thing is we need to import our libraries, that is import pandas as PD and numpy as n. Pretty standard there. Now to add reproducibility to our result, we will use np.random.seed42. This is just a seed number. Okay. Now we will define the number of rows. For this example, I am going to define like 10,000 rows. That's now to create our synthetic data, we will use np.random.choice and np.random.randint and np.random.reuniform. Don't worry about all these details here because anyway you are not going to work on that, but make sure that you understand this. It will create our column customer ID, which will be a unique ID, gender, which will be a categorical column, age, again a numeric column, which has an age of 18 to 70. These are the age ranges, and then product category, that is electronics, clothing, groceries, sports and toys. After that, amount spent by the customer, which is from 80 to 50,000. Then payment method, what was the payment method? Again a categorical variable, credit card, debit card, cash or e-wallet, and number of items that customer has purchased, which can range from 1 to 200. Okay, and once we have this dictionary with us, now we are going to create our data frame sales TF, which I called using pd.dataframe method and passing data to it, and then I am going to add this head. Now let me run this and you can see that we have our data frame first few samples, and if you want to check that we are actually getting our 1000 rows here or not, then you can simply do sales tf.shape and 1000,7. I hope you got the idea of how we are generating our data. So that's it. Now we will be working on this, and first thing that we are going to look at is aggregation. Pandas, aggregation not only means just to combine it, it also means to summarize the data in some sense using some of the summary statistics function that we know already. And these aggregations are done on two bases. First one being the column wise basis and second one being the rows wise. So let's look at column wise basis first. So in column, you can use mean, standard deviation, sum, mode and variance. We are going to see what are the interpretations behind each of them. Also, it is important to note that all above functions that are being mentioned here are for numerical data only. If you have categorical data, it will not satisfy. You need to convert your categorical data using the methods from the earlier video. So to start with, we are going to find the averages, amount spent and number of items bought by a buyer. So to do that, we are just going to use sales df bracket, then again a bracket, dot mean dot round 0. So what this does, it is very simple. First of all, we are going to index into column, and one thing to note here is that in the recent version of pandas, it expects us to have this 2D array, and this is the most easiest way to create our 2D array, that one bracket and inside that there is another bracket, as you can see. After that we are going to apply the mean as we have aggregated our data here, and then we are going to run the round function on it because we want that there should be no rounding. That's why I have included this 0. Now if I run it, on an average person or the buyer has an age of 43. On an average a person has spent around 25,133 rupees, and number of items on an average a person has bought is 100. So these are kind of insights that you can get from the first analysis. But as you can see, the average seems to be very low. Let's see if we can find the center of the data. So for that we will use our median. So all the things remain same except that we will replace our mean with our median. So now you can see that our age remains the same and number of items remain the same, but amount spent by the person at the center is 25,219, while here it is 25,133. So it means that it is kind of deviating a little bit from the center of the data, but that's totally fine. Also, one thing to note here is that this median is almost close to the mean, so that is one good thing. Now here, after carefully finding the insights, it was found that some people are spending large amounts, so median and mean is getting low. So let's check if we can have our standard deviation so that we can easily find out if there is a difference from the mean to the original data. Okay, so here if you see, our age on a standard deviation has 15, amount spent has a standard deviation of 14,327, and number of items is 50. Okay, now let's interpret, that is comparing mean, median and mode. This is very important in general if you want to share your insights with the client. The first thing is A. The relatively small standard deviation compared to mean and median indicates that age of customer are clustered around the averages, which is very good as this follows a normal distribution. Now amount spent is the large standard deviation indicate a significant spread in the spending behavior, with mean being considerably lower than median due to few high spenders. So in our data we have few high spenders, due to which our mean is kind of getting deviated because they are like outliers for our data, and it is kind of skewing our data in some sense. Now number of items, the high standard deviation suggests variability in purchasing behavior, which can have implication for inventory management and promotion. So if you have very low sales for a particular product, you can do some marketing and promotion on that, and if you have very high sales, that means your stock is getting out, you can have inventory management solution implemented on it. So these are kind of insights that you can get from this. So now let's get the sum of all the values in a specified column, which is our amount spent and number of items. And here again you see same thing we are doing here, just we are replacing our standard deviation to sum method, and the main aim here is to get the entirety of amount spent and number of items purchased. So let's run it, and you can see that amount spent by total buyer is 2 crores and number of items that was sold was like 9 lakh. Now let's get the mode. Mode refers to the most occurring value in this particular column so that we can find the most frequent ones, and also by default mode returns multiple modes. So to get your first mode, you have to use this ilog. Okay, so let's first run it, and you can see that the first mode occurs at 30. That means 30 is the most frequent value. Then amount spent is 6,315. So this is the most common amount people spend, and most common number of items that people have purchased is 81. Now let me show you. If I remove this ilog for amount spent, you can see that these are the most common, and these are like tiebreakers. So if you do ilog.0, it returns us the 0th row index value. Okay, so this marks the completion of how you can apply the aggregation function column wise, and now we will look at how to do aggregation row wise. Now for the row wise data, we are again going to create our new data set, which will be our student marks data set. And all you need to know here is that this particular code will generate a new data set which will have column name as subject 1, subject 2, subject 3, subject 4, and row will be the student marks. Okay, now here let me run this code, and you can see that we have student 0 whose subject 1 marks is 51, subject 2 marks is 92, subject 3 is 14, and subject 4 is 71, kind of a random data here. Now let's say I want to calculate the mean marks across all subjects, that is row wise, and also I want to calculate the sum of all the marks across the subjects. So we are only going to see these two methods, but you are free to use all the methods that we have seen our column basis and apply it on the row basis. The main idea here is to show you that how to do it on row basis. Now if you go for any of those methods now, you will see this axis parameter, and by default axis will be 0. So if you do axis is equal to 0, you will get all the marks in the column wise basis, that is 51 plus 60 plus 74 plus 23 plus 1 divided by 4. But if you want it on the row wise basis, that is 51 plus 92 plus 14 plus 71 divided by 4, you need to pass this value to 1, and this will do the trick. Now let's verify if we are actually getting that. So for that, if we are having our mean, that means that we can easily do 51 plus 92 plus 14 plus 71 divided by 4, and if I do this, you can see that it's exact the same value. So that means we actually got our mean on the row wise basis. Now same thing you can apply sum method also. Again, sum method will have this axis is equal to 1, so again we will sum it. Now if you do 51 plus 92 plus 14 plus 71, you can see that you will get 228 itself. So this will be helpful in ranking of students in some sense, okay? And if you want to do same for variance, you can do again using the rows. Anyways, let me show you this. So if I do student marks df, which is our df, and dot var is the variance method, and axis equal to 1, it will show me variance across rows, not columns. So this is how you can adapt your column aggregation to row aggregation and find various statistical measures. So this marks the end of the aggregation section. We looked at column wise aggregation and our row wise aggregation. Now let's move on to another important concept called group. Now comes the second most important part, grouping. Now in Pandas, grouping is a set of 3 operations. First one being the split, second one being the apply, and third one being the combine. So first, you split your data frame into a smaller data frame based on your key values, and these key values are unique. Then you apply your desired function, which can be an aggregation, a transformation, or a manipulation on each of the data frame that you have split from your split method. Third, once you have your results from your apply, you combine the results from the apply state into the data frame. Now this data frame is a new data frame, and once you have all these 3, you are actually done with the grouping. And this 3 process combined is called map reduce, and it is applied on very large data set to reduce the dimensionality. Here is a sample reference image that can help you understand this thing better. So see here, we have 2 categories A and B, and we have values separately for each one. Let's say we want to sum them all based on our categories A and B. So what we can do, we can split our data into A and B and then apply our sum function on it. Now 2 plus 1 will be 3 and 3 plus 4 will be 7, and finally once we have our output, we will create a new data frame where x and y will be there, and each category will represent the entire data and the sum function, and we will write that sum function here. 3 will be written to A and 7 will be written to B. So steps are very simple for using group by. First of all, you need to find the unique column which can act as a key. Here you can see that our A and B are kind of unique because at the end we are going to group based on this particular value. Now we will use our group by method which comes from the pandas, and then we will apply any aggregation function that is required. Now here if you see, we have our new sales TF because I have taken a copy of the original sales TF and I am just printing some of the values. Now you can see customer ID, gender, age, product category, amount spent, payment method, and number of items. Now let's say I want to find the mean amount spent by males in purchasing a product. So what you can do, you can simply use the group by method to split your data on male and female and then take only male amount spent and apply the mean method on it. That's what we are going to do here. We are using new sales TF dot group by, on which we want to group by this particular column gender. so gender, then which particular column we want to access, amount spent, as mean has to be calculated on amount spent, and dot mean. Once we apply this, we will get our value and it will be stored in total spent by gender. Now you can't directly access this, you need to use method provided by Pandas to access this. So to get the total amount spent by males, you have to do total spent by gender, get male values and 0th index, and once we have that, it will be returned as a string value. So you need to store it total spent males and then you need to convert it. So as you can see, 275, that means 25,275 rupees are alone spent by males. Now if I do female, let's see what we get, 24,900. This means that male and female are spending amount almost equally, with male taking a little bit of lead. Okay, so in general, this is the syntax. You have your variable, you have your df.group by, df basically refers to the data frame that you have loaded, then the column name which you want to group, that is the unique key value, then you have the var.aggregation function, which you can even combine here, and aggregation function means sum, mean, median, mode, and then finally if you want to combine, you can do group by column name for grouping and whichever specific column you want to use for this group, and then you need to aggregate the operation. So this marks the end of how to use grouping. Obviously I have not explained very detailed in this. If you want a specific video on group by, do let me know in the comments, but for now let's move on to our homework. So guys, your homework is pretty simple. You need to navigate to homework link and use the code to generate the new data. Click on it and it will open on a new page and you have this particular code. Now if you see, I have written this a small code which will generate you a new set of data frame. So once you have generated your data from this, now you need to follow these instructions and apply some of the transformations that are required, and it has all been covered in my previous video. So go and visit that. I will give the link to the playlist at the bottom. And then once you have done all these instructions and then everything, you need to move on to this particular homework and solve it, and you need to answer them in comments in this particular format. And if you need reference, here are the resources that you can use. First one being the reference notebook itself, that is the GitHub link where you can find this Pandas crash course and you can find all the files by the file names. You can click on it and refer that. Then second is Pandas group by documentation, and I will highly suggest that please go and explore all the things that are present in this group by, because it will help you a lot. Third one is the series playlists itself, and all these will help you to do your work. So guys, that's it for this particular video. I hope that you will do your homework and we will meet again in another video. Till then, bye bye.